I'd like to call the MPO Policy Committee to order, and we will begin with introductions, and we'll start with Jason.
Good morning. Jason Bannock, representing Indiana University.
Hi. Nate Nickel, City of Bloomington Public Works Department, serving as proxy for Adam Wason, Director.
Becky Packer with Indiana Department of Transportation.
Scott Ferris with the Monroe County Plan Commission.
Doug Horn with the Bloomington Public Transportation Corporation Board of Directors.
Lisa Ridge, Monroe County Highway Department.
Andrew Seabor, serving as proxy for Mayor Thompson.
Steve Bishop, City of Bloomington Plan Commission.
Sam Tobin Hochstadt, Citizens Advisory Commission.
Hopi Stossberg, appointment by the Bloomington City Council.
Thank you. Moving to approval of the meeting agenda for today.
Point of order.
Scott?
I would like to amend the agenda, and I have two motions
Am I talking to you, Mike?
right here. You can't hear me, right? I hate this room because you just can't hear each other, but look up there. So I have really two motions to modify the new agenda, which we received yesterday. Specifically, I would like to add under Roman numeral 8, old business, a new A.
Can you speak maybe closer to your microphone? That's the problem, is that you're far away.
I keep trying, but I'm failing in my effort there. How about now? Okay, I'll say it again. So I have two motions, both dealing with the agenda, and the first motion deals with Roman numeral 8, old business, and I'm proposing a new A. And that agenda item would be, and let me read it, a new interoperative interlocal agreement for the MPO urbanized area for Bloomington and Monroe County. And so I would put a motion on the floor to adopt that as a new A.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? I will second that. Scott, do you want to?
Okay, I was going to bring this up later. It's really kind of complicated. In our last meeting, we talked about source documentation, which really created the MPO in the beginning. And in the packet, we have, let me grab it here. You have all of these source documents which the MPO staff provided us. And it goes in detail. There's an MOU, there's an interim understanding, there's documentation that essentially went to the governor from the mayor and at that time, the president of the county commissioners, and eventually went to the U.S. Department of Transportation and then back down to NDOT and back to us. And that, in fact, is the paperwork that established the MPO. And the MPO that was established in that letter essentially was for the City of Bloomington Plan Commission to be the MPO for the urbanized area of the Monroe County and the City of Bloomington. And that's it. Some discussion has taken place over time on whether or not, and lately, whether that agreement is still in effect. And that agreement calls for a continuous cooperative discussion between all the various elements of the people who really sit up here at this table and represent whatever communities they come from. The agreement that was referenced leading up to the governor recommending that we have an MPO was an interim agreement, had a sunset clause that expired. And that's kind of like where we are right now. So we really don't have a basis for who does what. The roles and responsibilities are not properly defined. I'm making a recommendation that once we get to that topic, even though I'm premature at this point, is that we actually get the folks together and come up with a new agreement. And I have a specific motion for that later when this topic is brought up, but that's why I want it added. This has been a lively discussion for some time, maybe not so much in this room, but in other rooms. Does that answer your question?
Jason?
Yeah, if I could ask a question. So is this something that staff has reviewed? Do they have an opinion?
Staff would like to clarify that the agreement is still in effect. If it was not in effect, we would not be receiving federal funding to this day.
And if I can reclama that,
I also want to just make clear that the agreement established in 1982 was to, place the MPO under the Plan Commission for the city of Bloomington. That was done simply as a contractor for a number of reasons. The city had the greater population for the urbanized area. The city had contracting ability. The city was the one that started the transportation studies a few years before the designation of the MPO. And there's other reasons why the decisions took place to make the Plan Commission the contracting agency. And that was just a formality that had to be done in order for us to become an official urbanized area and thus receive federal funds from the government. Every year that we continue this relationship with Federal Highway and INDOT, submit our TIP, our MTP document, our UPWP, that is a renewing of that relationship that then gets us the federal funds for the transportation projects.
So I just want to add to that. I don't think anybody's questioning, but none of us were here in 1981. And
Right.
to have a document that's 40-plus years old that hasn't been updated, I think it's just good to update agreements, see where we're at now, where we weren't 40 years ago, what's changed, what authorities have changed, what job titles have changed. And I don't see a problem of updating to a current agreement that's 40 years old. That's why I supported that discussions begin on updating an agreement. I'm not aware of many agreements that go on for 40-plus years that don't need tweaked.
so in a quick reclama to what you said, the governor or
Debating about whether or not to add an agenda item, and so I think I would prefer to stick to that point of whether or not we're going to add this agenda item as opposed to debating the concept of that agenda item right now.
noted.
So we had a motion and a second to add it to the agenda. Is there any
I
more
have a point of clarification.
discussion?
The motion said to add a new item A, but what do we do with the item A that is currently there? Is this a replacement motion, or is in the motion, is there a proposal to move the current item A to item B?
There will be a second motion, and that is to move A to a B. Now, we can combine this all.
I will not vote yes for that motion until, we need to roll those things in together, because otherwise we're eliminating something that we actually have to statutorily deal with today for the state of Indiana.
Be willing to amend his motion to move item A to B and add that to his
Okay.
motion. And
I accept that friendly amendment.
Question. Is it appropriate to head this under old business? This seems rather new.
I think it was trying to be tied in to the passing of the UPWP, to tie it together.
It was also discussed at the last meeting.
So the motion on the table, as I understand, would be adding item A of the intercooperative agreement discussion and moving item A to item B.
did you
We have a
second?
motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second. I will do that.
And any more discussion on that motion?
Question. This is just a discussion.
Correct.
We're not going to be giving any directives.
It's just discussion.
Thank you.
Could give it.
Any other comments on the motion?
Could do.
Any public comment? Seeing none.
Lisa?
Pardon.
I do actually have another question about that, and it relates to what somebody just mentioned, is this really old business? And just because we mentioned something at our last meeting, I'm not sure that that constitutes as old business. And I also am wondering, like, what the precedent is for MPO meetings in terms of these business things, because I think the business that usually gets put on our agenda is something that we have to vote on. And if this is just going to be a discussion, does it belong under business at all? Or does it belong under communication from committee members on other matters? And that is a process question that I think that I would most like to hear from the chair or from our staff or from other members who have been a part of the MPO for a number of years and have looked at those sorts of process things. Does
When we discuss this item, I'm going to have a motion that I'm going to put on the table. So it's more than a discussion. It's going to be, we're going to talk more about this document, right? These sets of documents right here. At the last meeting, as you remember, because you were there, I asked the MPO director, Pat, to provide us with the source information on what established the MPO. And the question I had at the time was, if the Plan Commission is a contracting entity, because back in that time frame, that was the only body that pretty much existed between the city and county, what was the relationship between the MPO Plan Commission, I'm sorry, the City of Bloomington Plan Commission and the MPO staff? And what Pat said, and he can take and embellish if he'd like, he said there is none. And I have documentation from Pat saying if that is the case. So there is absolutely no connection right now between the City of Bloomington Plan Commission that's outlined in the Orr letter, Governor Orr letter, and what you have today. This is why an agreement, a new agreement, is required. But this is what was discussed at the last meeting. This is key and essential to the foundation for the plan that we're going to discuss later. You've got to have, as I've mentioned to others, and you know how this works, you have to, let me finish, please. You have to have an agreement that you reference before you have a plan. A plan is not a standalone policy directive. You've got to have an agreement or something that leads into that plan. So that's key and essential to the organizational element of the plan that we're talking about today.
Happy?
I'm still going to argue, I don't think that that belongs under old business.
Pardon me?
I don't think that that belongs under old business, and that I guess in my experience with this meeting and these business categories, we know what we're voting on in advance, and and even if there is a motion attached to that, I don't know in advance what it is. There's not the documentation to support that, so that's why I don't think that that belongs under the old business. I'm not saying that it's not a conversation, but I'm saying that I don't like that it's going to be that part of the agenda. We don't need to keep on debating it. I'll just vote no on this motion, and we'll see what happens. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. No more comments from the board. Roll call vote.
Yes.
Bannock,
Yes.
Nickel,
No.
Packer,
Yes.
Harris.
Was that me? I can't hear what you're saying. If it's me, I'd
Sorry, Ferris,
yes.
Horn,
Yes.
Seabour,
No.
Ridge,
Yes.
Bishop,
No.
Tobin, I forgot how you say it.
No.
Thank you. Stottsburg,
No.
that's 6 yeses, so motion does not pass.
How many noes? I'm sorry? How many yeses, how many noes?
5 noes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yeses.
So it passed.
That's a majority.
Point of order, it doesn't have to be the majority of the body, not just the majority of those present. I know that that's how council works. So if council has only 5 present, even if 4 vote yes and 1 votes no, it still doesn't carry. I don't know how that works here, though.
Okay.
And I don't remember how many members of the body we have.
So,
Okay, sorry. 6 yeses and 5 nos. Motion passes.
That passes.
that's what I said.
Okay, moving on to
Well-
item,
I just, point of order, I just want to make sure that in that motion, you have a new A and a new B,
correct.
right, as part of the agenda.
That was part of your
All right.
motion. Moving on to item 3, election of calendar year policy committee officer for vice chair. Do
I'm
we-
sorry, Lisa, we just voted on an amendment to the agenda, and now,
Oh, so now
do we still have to do an approval of the
Approve
whole
the
meeting
amended
agenda?
agenda.
Or did that vote include that?
So we should go back and make a motion for approval of the modified agenda.
I move approval of the amended agenda. Thank you.
We have a motion and we have a second. Do we have any discussion? Any public comment? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Strasburg,
No.
Tobin, Hush,
Yes.
sorry. Bishop,
No.
Ridge,
Yes.
Seaboard,
Yes.
Horn,
Yes.
Ferris,
Yes.
Packer,
Yes.
Nickel,
Yes.
Bannock. Yes. Thomas.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 3, election of vice chair for the upcoming 2026. Do we have any nominations?
Who's our CAC member?
Her.
I just want, since I felt like at this point I should perhaps introduce myself since I am replacing the previous vice chair. My name is Sam Tobin Hochstadt, and I'm now the chair of the Citizens Advisory Commission for the MPO. John Kennedy was the previous chair of the CAC and was the vice chair. However, I do not plan to stand for vice chair of this body. Thank you, and nice to meet all of you, who I haven't met before.
Thank you. Do we have any volunteers for vice chair?
It's double what you make now for this meeting.
I want to be clear, I'm not volunteering right now, but if we could go over again the responsibilities of what vice chair is, maybe that would elicit something.
Basically, in the absence of the chair would be running this meeting. Outside of that, they're maybe signing the resolutions. If they signed a resolution, if the chair wasn't here, not a lot of outside duties outside of running this meeting.
When you say not a lot, does that actually mean none?
I'm being the chair. This is probably my biggest responsibility of running this meeting. I have contact with the staff, basically signing resolutions, but there is not much outside of this meeting that is needed from chair or vice chair, and I've done it for a few years now.
I'll do that if nobody else will do it, kind of grudgingly, but yeah.
I nominate Commissioner Strasburg as vice chair.
We have a motion and a second. Any other nominations? Seeing none. Any public comment? Seeing none. Roll call vote, please.
Would you like to do all in favor since everybody's in the room?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Do a voice vote.
All those in favor for our vice chair being Hoppy, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Moving on to approval of minutes for Friday, January 30th, 2026.
I have a motion to approve the Friday, January 30th, 2026 minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes of Friday, January 30th, 2026, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Communications from the chair or vice chair. I do not have any at this time.
I certainly wasn't prepared to do that today. I said I certainly wasn't prepared to do that today.
That's fine. Moving on, reports from officers and/or committees. Maybe start with the technical committee.
Sure. Technical Advisory Committee met this past Wednesday and reviewed the items that are on our agenda today and recommended all for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Citizens,
So the Citizens Advisory Committee met on Wednesday and reviewed the all the items that were on the original agenda here. Obviously, we did not hear anything about the new agenda item and recommended all of them for approval.
thank you. Moving on to reports from MPO staff. Item A.
Item A is just a resource to share with you that recently came across my path. It is called the NDOT Intersection and Interchange Map, and it looks something like this. And they also provide information on the treatments that they have done that you'll see in the map. So that's just kind of interesting to look at, and I just wanted to bring that to your attention for your general education. Any questions? Okay, item B is a public input opportunity. NDOT is currently seeking public comment on their planning public involvement plan. You can review the draft document and provide feedback on it until Friday, March 13th, 2026. And I've provided those links in the packet for you. I think the last time they updated it was 2023. All right, item C on page 9 of the packet. This is an overview of this fiscal year of TIP funds. So just to remind everybody, every fiscal year, between July and June, we have an allocation, a federal fund allocation that is given to us that we must use by the end of the year. If we cannot use it on local transportation projects, then the options are to try and trade it with another MPO in the state in order to gain funds for another year, or if we can't do that, we can flex the funds to our local transit system. And so we have, for this fiscal year 26, we have reached a balance of 0, and we have obligated 100% of our funds for this fiscal year. And so this spreadsheet here is kind of just a summary of where we started and where we ended up. It's more information than you necessarily need to know, but I go through how the funding level was $4.6 million as of March of 25 when you all approved the TIP. And that is the funding level that was used to make the initial allocations, the initial awarding of the funds in March of 25. And so at that time, downtown curb ramps, phase 5, High Street intersection modernization and multi-use path project, the West 2nd Street project, and the old SR 37 South and Dillman Road intersection improvement project were all allocated funds at that time through our TIP. Of course, the TIP is always evolving, and so the top chart shows you how we had new levels come from NDOT. There were some reductions as NDOT has to balance out what has been used and account for other things. And so we ended with an official allocation of $4.4 million. And then we did an exchange with an MPO last spring. So that brought our total for this fiscal year to $5.6 million. Now, I will say that in the past, we were able to kind of overspend our amounts for the fiscal year, and that's when NDOT does the balancing. However, that was not possible this year, and we weren't aware of that. And so when we received the new funding levels of 4.4, we failed to update the tip to reflect that. And so we were short $209,875. And because of that, the last project to request their funds from NDOT during this fiscal year was downtown curb ramps phase 5. And so that is why no funding from this fiscal year was allocated to downtown curb ramps phase 5. And then because High Street was not able to use their funds, this year, 0 funds were allocated to High Street this year. The High Street funds were reallocated by staff to the West 2nd Street project. And then Old SR 37 project received their same allocation that was planned originally. So I just wanted to give you a summary of the fiscal year funding since we have successfully reached a 0 balance. Any questions?
Andrew?
I guess just to make sure I'm digesting this information, I appreciate the summary and I appreciate the communication MPO staff have recently had with city staff on this, but just because my brain doesn't work that well at the super detailed level, as I'm understanding it, the tip and what was originally programmed was roughly $4.6 million throughout the calendar or fiscal year. That value was reduced by roughly $200,000. So what the funding that actually exists is different than what is programmed in our tip. And simply because of the timing of a city project going after other projects, that project was just not able to receive the federal funding. So if it would have been any other project, it could have been this county or another project that would have simply just not received the funding. Is that typical process, or is it usually more distributed amongst other projects, or is it just, is there something we can do to avoid this in the future?
This was a mistake on the MPO staff's side, and it was due to lack of information. And in the future, it shouldn't happen as long as, as long as NDOT levels don't change, later throughout the year. But in this case, there was no excuse for that. Staff should have made an adjustment to the tip last fall to account for the new levels, and it would have had to involve the reduction of somebody's funds. And at this time, it would have been a discussion between MPO staff and Lisa and Neil and Andrew about how that reduction, that $200,000 reduction, would have had to play out. But it is a process we'll probably be talking about in the future. So,
thank you for that explanation.
Hoppy and Scott.
I just have a question in terms of those downtown curb ramps, that project. Is that project just like totally gone now? Or will that try to get funded next year and it just is kind of postponed?
If Andrew wants to speak to this, he can, but according to Neil, it is moving forward with design. I can't speak to their local funding part of it.
Okay, but in terms of MPO funding, like that project just won't get any MPO funding now, or it would get funding potentially in a subsequent year?
No, it's still in the PE phase, so
Okay.
I can't remember. I have to look at the
Okay,
tip to see
okay.
what the
It'll still
years
happen
are.
then and okay, all right, just timing or funding specifics have just changed some.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
for this year.
Scott?
So don't we have a process in place now with the LPAs that talks about funding or funded projects that are not being able to spend those dollars in a redistribution or a realignment of those dollars? Isn't there a process in place now?
Yes.
That's what I thought, so.
Okay. Item D is historical designation documentation for the MPO, just provided based on conversations at the previous meeting in January. You all can review those in your own time, but it was very interesting for me as well to read that and see that not much has changed since 1982. This whole effort of the MPO was created as a intergovernmental process with representatives from the city, county, Ellettsville, and Indiana University. And it's just fascinating to see that it has always been a cooperative effort since the very beginning, no matter who the contracting agency happens to be. If you guys have any questions about that documentation, please let us know. All right, item E, I just want to share a few updates for some of the projects. So the main update that I have that's new from last time is that the NDOT project for Bridge Thin Deck Overlay on I-69, there's 6 locations for this project, and their project manager reached out and shared their anticipated detour road closure plan with us. They said that construction for these Bridge Thin Deck Overlay locations is anticipated during fall of 2026 or spring of 27, and that the construction at these locations will occur separately. 5 of the locations will have shoulder and lane closures, but they will be less than 7 days. 2 of the locations, West Arlington and Kinzer Pike, will use temporary traffic signals, but roads will remain open. But there may be delays. Other than that, downtown curb ramps Phase 5 is starting design. They're currently negotiating the design contract right now. High Street project over here is wrapping up right-of-way acquisition. They will be doing some tree clearing before the environmental bat window closes on April 1st of this year, and in advance of the utility relocations in 2026. Project construction letting will occur in October of 26. The construction of this project will likely be broken into segments or phases, segments of the road and phases, and it will most likely become a one-way street. So there will be access, but likely only one direction, but that's still being finalized. So the engineering department will keep us appraised. The 2026 utility locations for High Street will be also have flagging and possibly one way, but it will be a shorter duration than 27. The Eagleson Bridge project went to construction letting in February and is having pre-construction meeting in March and April. Same for the Rockport Road Bridge. And Fairfax High Friction Treatment Project. The pavement cores were completed in January, and core reports likely will come back in June. The old 37 South and Dillman project, right, that one. The early coordination letters for Section 106 review went out in February. Those are the project updates I have, and after questions, we can move on.
Scott?
We've talked about this a lot in the past, and it's the project that relates to the bypass to Pete Ellis Drive and the status of the contract, which I believe is supposed to be let in April. Has any of that changed?
No,
Is that still the date?
as far as I know.
That makes sense. I know there's pushback on the tree removal in front of the post office and down in some of the IU properties. There's signs posted on trees. Is that changing any of the plans with NDOT?
We are currently working with Andrew and Neil to look at possible change in the plans. We are unaware. We don't know at this moment how many trees maybe can be saved. We'll know sometime next week, but we are still pushing for the April letting.
Thank you.
I wanted to follow up on the tree thing because that was one of the things I wanted to bring up too, just because, you know, as I'm the council representative, if people don't know, I'm the council representative for District 3, which is where that is. And so I've had several constituents reach out about their concern of those tree removal things. And well, there's an NDOT person here and Andrew as well. And publicly saying this, I was at that meeting a couple of years ago, that community information meeting, and I have a recollection of somebody asking about how many trees were going to be removed. And the answer was essentially hardly any, if any, because there was particular concern at the time about the trees along 10th Street, that on Hinkle Garden, those maple trees that they tap, and those are not slated for removal. But so there was particular concern about that, but even at that time, the folks there said, you know, maybe a couple at the corner, but that's it. So it feels a really dramatic change right now. And I mean, other people who attended that meeting would have heard that. So I'm really glad to hear that there's some of that negotiation going on. And I hope that the conclusion of that does preserve more of those trees in terms of, you know, really looking closely at what is needed for those costs, because my understanding is that Pete Ellis isn't really going to be widened very much. And yet a lot of those trees are scheduled to come down. So I just am glad that that's being looked at closely, and my constituents will be glad to hear that as well. Thank you.
Follow-up to that, since I've been intimately involved with this project going all the way back to 2018. These discussions have been going on for a long time. And some of us actually went down to NDOT Seymour and had conversations with them about this. And if I remember correctly, and the data points that were put on the table at that time, is that the trees that were going to be removed, they were going to take and move back from where they were removed, and they were going to take and put other trees in place. That's what I remember in those discussions. And I believe I was at that same discussion that you're at, Hoppy. So yeah, it's a concern, and a lot of those trees are really gorgeous old trees, and I hope that we have a plan in place to not put little twigs in their place, but something that's a little more mature in there if we're going to replace those trees.
Thank you, Scott. Julie?
I agree that there were statements made that, you know, and I think the focus was on the Garden House maple trees at the time, and it looks like none of those are slated. But where should constituents call NDOT at, or what should constituents do? How will we see a plan if it's revised? How will we see it? How will the folks in our community see it? And where should they go to ask questions?
They should still go through the NDOT for you number. That's I-1855. I don't know it off the top of my head.
I have it.
It spells out NDOT for you.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
is our best.
Okay, and then the plan, but will the updated plan be posted somewhere, or how will they know that if the plans change? Because it will change the visual beauty of that corridor. They're not really old trees, actually. They're mid-aged. They're not, towering oaks from, 100 years ago, but they have been there a long time, and it does add a sense of the environment going into the residential area.
I will have to see. There will be a revision that'll come out with the plans. So it's just how the contract documents come out. And we probably will not have that until close to the letting date.
Ooh.
It'll be like a week probably before letting.
Okay. Can we be sure to get a copy of that? I hate to ask that, but is there a way that we can get a copy of that?
I will see if I can get
Okay.
a supply. I know Andrew will have a copy because he will get
You'll
it.
have a copy. You'll have one too, right?
I'm just obligated to make the comment for those of us who have been playing with this project for some time now. This project has been delayed on any number of occasions. And I would hope that whatever the revision is can meet with some sort of friendly concurrence so that the letting date is not shifted to the right again. For those of us who live in that area out there, this is a choke point area, one road in, one road out, and as I've explained on numerous occasions, because of all the student population, the bus traffic between the city and the school systems, and also Indiana University and the plethora of apartment complexes up and down that corridor now, we're just saturated with people and cars. And so delaying this project any more than what it's already been delayed, in my opinion, respectfully, is a problem.
And that's not the intention of NDOT or the city. We've already had discussions.
Thank you.
I guess just to add, appreciating this discussion, appreciating that, as Rebecca had noted, we've had some really productive conversations in the last few days, even in maybe even this morning through conversations in the email. But NDOT is certainly, and their consultants, working to try to save as many of those trees on Pete Ellis as possible. I also just want to note that there will be some trees closer to 10th Street that will come down, but trying to find that right balance. And there are active coordination, and I do expect some of them to be saved. So thanks to NDOT. And I think we are all working in the spirit of keeping this project on track. There's a lot of wonderful things with it, and so I think everybody has that intention.
So is there, I know there's a lot of interest in this, and letting date, it's, March is Sunday. Is there a way for this board to be kind of provided an update in the next couple of weeks of if there's been a decision, if there's been a compromise made that assures that the project will still go to letting in April? Is that possible?
I'm open, as I'm.
It's an NDOT project.
Yeah.
I understand it's an NDOT project, but I understand also that it's a discussion between the city of Bloomington and NDOT for their project. I have my own projects that we have discussions. I'm happy to provide any update of the status of that project moving forward. I'm just asking if we're allowed as a board to be a status update like in 2 weeks. I don't know that that's really a difficult thing to ask. I'm not asking MPO staff to do it, maybe City of Bloomington, just kind of where the negotiations ended up. So we don't get into the middle of March and then we get into April 1st and sorry, there was no compromise and the project's been pulled. I'm just trying to have communication.
We'll make a contact with NDOT's communications office down in the Seymour District. Have that initiative.
Okay.
Tell them there's a great interest in the community and therefore we'd appreciate any updates. And they're always very cooperative.
And I'll just, as a city, we're talking specifically about a part of the project that is on a city road, and so we're actively coordinating and appreciate NDOT's coordination. And I don't want to overstep and share things on a project we're not managing, but if people wanted to offhand reach out, I'm happy to always provide updates if you've got questions, but I don't want to feel appropriate to just do a mass distribution on a project we're not managing.
All righty. Copy.
Is it appropriate, Andrew, to ask you to, when there is an update from your negotiations with the city, to pass that on to our MPO staff? And then our MPO staff are you able to then send it to us as a body? Is that a compromise that you feel would not overstep what your job responsibilities are? Is that?
Honestly, big picture, I don't care. I'm happy to. I'm more looking at Becky on wanting for NDOT to have a chance to weigh in.
We'll work through the NDOT review process because that's the proper channel to.
I was like, yes, I mean, Pat can reach out to us. I mean,
We'll also do it formally through the NDOT review
yeah,
process.
at this time, we won't know anything until probably the end of next week, to be exact.
Thank you.
Seeing no more questions, moving on to old business. Item A, that was added to our agenda.
Do you want me to restate it?
Sure, I mean, yeah.
I don't know if you wrote it down or not. But what I stated was a new interoperative interlocal agreement for the MPO.
We can't hear you again.
I'm sorry. We really need to get this fixed. Or I need to speak into the mic. Okay, a new interoperative/interlocal agreement for the MPO urbanized area of Bloomington and Monroe County. That's the discussion item.
Okay, any comment?
The only comment that I would make is what I already said. It's really based upon this stack of source documents, which is in the packet. If you haven't looked at it, it pretty much steps through everything that I said. The bottom line is that what is stated here is like Lisa said, it's really, really old, 40 years or so, and it needs to be updated. The fact that the MPO is the City of Bloomington Plan Commission, and even in that letter, even though it's mentioned in other places as a contracting entity, it's not in the governor or letter that was sent to the U.S. Department of Transportation, back to NDOT, and then back to the city. And incidentally, back in those days, this is Frank McCluskey and Charlotte Zitlow. They're the ones who were behind all this. And on behalf of the planning department, I talked to the former county attorney in that time frame on Wednesday, and he said that the City of Bloomington Planning Department was much more robust than what we had at that point in time in the county, so it was a logical place for it to be. That contracting entity has shifted to, I believe, to the Transportation and Planning Department of the city, and if you look at the website, you'll see that Pat has been identified as the MPO director embedded inside that department or division. And none of this stuff is explained anywhere, and I'm not aware that it was ever discussed in this body. Now, some will make the argument that some of the other documents that are produced by this body, such as the plan we're going to talk about next, the references in that document is in fact the codifying event establishing the agreement. And as I've said before, I've got 8 years in the Pentagon, and I've worked with the U.S. government interagency process. I've been a member of a U.S. delegation in Geneva doing arms control. I'm very familiar with the processes on how to get this stuff done. An agreement feeds into a plan. The plan is not the agreement. You got to start with a source first. That's why I asked the question at the last meeting, give us a source so we can have this debate. This just needs to be redone. That's the bottom line. I can't add anything else to the discussion than what I've already said.
Thank you, Scott. Hi, sorry, I'd just like to clarify. Responsibility has not shifted to the Planning and Transportation Department. The Plan Commission was named as the contracting agency in the 1982 letter to the governor. And it also, the same letter stated that the City of Bloomington Planning Department will be the lead local agency primarily responsible for the conduct of the transportation studies that are done. Just wanted to clarify that.
Still the same thing.
Point of order. Go back to the letter and put it on the screen and read it. I hereby designate the City of Bloomington Plan Commission as the planning agency for the urbanized area. That's it.
So would it be appropriate if maybe we suggest that the City of Bloomington legal team and the Monroe County legal team get together to maybe update the agreement that's 40 years old? I'm not sure what the next step is.
I have a motion that
Pardon?
I'd like to put on the table once the discussion is complete.
Okay.
So if the discussion is complete, I'll put a motion on the table.
You are more than welcome to put a motion on the table, and it could be up for discussion.
The motion would be, the office of the mayor and the office of the county commissioners will prepare a new intercooperative, I used intercooperative because that's what was mentioned in the original documents, with a new terminology of interlocal agreement for the MPO urbanized area of Bloomington, Monroe County. Legal counsel from the city and county will lead the effort and provide administrative support. This will include any required state, federal notification requirements and be presented to the MPOPC for approval. That would be the motion.
We have a motion and we have a second, and we will open this up for discussion.
This seems like a thing that we would be asking the county and city legal departments to do, not something that this body has the ability to require. We can approve transportation projects, but not tell other people's lawyers what to do.
Hoppy?
I similarly have a concern with how that motion is worded, basically because of that, but that motion also by default kind of says we want a new document at the end of it. And I don't think that I know for sure that I want a new document at the end of it unless I have an attorney's interpretation of the current documents, because, you know, if not very much has changed. I mean, you say, you know, these documents are 40 years old, but I think that there are a lot of documents that are 40 years old or even older than that. And sometimes they need to be updated, and sometimes it's not necessary for them to be updated. And I would like an attorney's recommendation about this. And, you know, and one thing that comes to mind just in terms of like language actually has to do with the engineering department, that one of the things that I've looked at in the last couple of years with regard to language has to do with how the state defines a traffic engineer, and then how the city of Bloomington defines a traffic, like who fulfills that state role and what title do they have here. And so I don't know at this point, you know, there's that concern about, well, what does the plan commission in this document mean? Honestly, is it the same plan commission that we have? I don't know that it is, because I was, you know, not here in the early 80s, not in Indiana, not paying attention to government at all. And so I would want a robust legal opinion about this. So I would have an alternate motion about requesting a legal opinion, as was mentioned by somebody else earlier, from county and city legal to look into these founding documents and their advice over whether there should be an effort to update them.
Doug?
Thank you. Each of us here represents a body of decision makers. This is a rather sweeping motion that puts a lot of onus on each one of us as individuals to speak for our body. I don't feel comfortable doing that, and would entertain that we table this motion for at least 1 month while we can have the opportunity to bring it to our respective organizations for their own discussions and perhaps recommendations on the path forward.
Thank you. Julie?
I do want to thank Colonel Ferris for his work on this. He's dug through some old documents. And I, as one of the county commissioners, can state, and I don't know if the mayor's representative can do so, that I agree that this should happen. This is something we've been talking about internally for a bit, and it really came to light when that fund swapping thing happened last year, fund swapping 2025, and we didn't have a policy we find out about it after the fact, we're asked too late. I mean, my understanding is this is the only MPO in the state of Indiana that operates out of a city's planning department. And if it's not the only one, there's only a few. I know there's a metro version that does that, but we are, I think it puts staff in a terrible position, and it's unfair to staff to have their boss is City of Bloomington employees who are ostensibly, I believe this is true, and Ms. Dossberg, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the Plan Commission hires and is in charge of the planning department. That's not true. Okay, it is true in county. That's how we work it in county. Our poor planning department has 9 bosses. So if that's not true, but either way, they are answering to city employees, but yet this is supposed to be county and city and town of Ellettsville and IU, everybody working together, right? And it really puts the staff in a terrible position. And I don't think that's fair to staff. I'm just going to say that, and the staff may disagree, but my take on it is they really should be led by an executive committee of this body, as they do elsewhere, that helps ensure that everything is being directed and managed as this policy committee sees fit. So I'm glad to have this. I can tell you that the county is willing to engage in that conversation. I don't know if we should also include Ellettsville, IU, and others. And I think that should be part of that discussion. I'm not even going to ask to amend the motion. I'm just going to say, we'll definitely keep that in mind, because that's part of this MPO as well. It's not just the county and the city. It is this group, right? It's all of us. So I really appreciate it, and thank you again, Colonel Ferris, for bringing this to light in an organized manner.
Andrew?
Yeah, I guess just first wanting to clarify a few things. Like, I know I voted against this agenda item, and in the current motion on the table, I would likely vote against as well, but I also want to make it clear that I very much appreciate this discussion and appreciate the questions being asked. I appreciate the comments we just heard from Commissioner Thomas. I think there's a lot to this, and it's a discussion worth having. I think I MPO staff in particular are in an awkward position, I would assume and expect, and I know they do the best as possible, if any, to try to be as fair and consistent as possible. So they are in a very tough position. So I just appreciate this. I think going forward, I don't know if it would be appropriate for the office of the mayor to be a part of this. That's one of the reasons, but I think as a body, like, it's fair for us to ask of MPO staff specifically to further engage. I'd be curious, like, to frame, like, what are some of the fundamental questions we're wanting to discover? Like, this is old, like that's fair. And are there particular parts of it that we have questions about? Like, one is maybe just the organizational structure. Where are staff housed? How are they funded? What do other MPOs in the state look like, and how are they functioning, and how are they funded? I think those might be good questions, and then maybe to ask staff, along with our CAC and TAC to investigate this further and to keep us up to date. But maybe it's our job to help frame, like, what are the key questions that we want to explore to help frame what a potential new agreement would look like. Again, just some initial off-the-cuff thoughts, but do want to echo the appreciation for the discussion.
Happy? Thank you. I appreciate those comments, and they were so interesting that now I've lost track of what I was going to say to some degree. I guess I also want to clarify that I'll vote no on this particular motion, but would hope for a different motion that starts getting legal to look into it. But I also wanted to address some of that staffing stuff that Commissioner Thomas brought up, because those are good questions. But I think that it doesn't matter so much where staff is housed, but it's what the org structure looks like within that. So it's like, okay, so, and it's also not fair, I think, and not appropriate to ask our current staff to give us this information, because that puts them in an incredibly awkward position of us saying, so is this thing like working okay right now? And then that's like in this really weird hot seat. But I think that that's the kind of thing that, we can consider best practices, and then we can consider job descriptions and literally things like reporting, disciplinary procedures, feedback and assessment procedures. And so it doesn't matter, if they have offices in the City of Bloomington Planning and Transportation Department, if what's happening is they're in there as like co-equals, as opposed to reporting to somebody, getting permission from somebody to do something, feeling like what they do is going to be criticized by somebody who should not structurally be their supervisor. And so, in thinking about any kind of new agreement that might happen, it doesn't matter so much to me where they're housed, but it's how that reporting mechanism works and the structure of mechanism, and honestly, the hiring. How is our staff hired? I don't know that. I've only been here for a couple of years, but and that's the thing. Commissioner Thomas mentioned the other planning staff and Plan Commission. Plan Commission approves an appointment for the planning director for the City of Bloomington of the mayor's. So it's like the mayor comes forward with a recommendation, and then Plan Commission approves it. But we have no involvement with any other hires related to the planning department, and it would be kind of. It would be really, really bizarrely disruptive probably for the Plan Commission after the mayor has gone through a whole appointment process to then say no. Like, what do we do then? Because the Plan Commission itself is not really in a place to vet a director role. So we had to do that last year with Director Hiddle, and it was really awkward because I was like, what happens if we say no to this? This feels like a question that shouldn't be a question. And that, I think, is the only. There are very few directors, I think, within the org structure that are appointed by the mayor that also then have to be approved by some other body. I don't want to say that that's the only one, but there are very few of them. So that I think matters to me more than where somebody is physically housed. Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Scott?
So, thinking outside the box a little bit, this is a very complicated.
Can you please speak into the microphone?
I can say the same thing for you folks down there as well. I will do my best. I've heard this several times now. Thank you. Okay, thinking outside the box here and based upon comments that I've heard. I'm not changing my motion at this point, but this would be something to think about. Because this is so complicated and it has so many moving parts, and obviously people have different opinions on it. Maybe we call a special session of this body with one topic. And we have legal counsel from the city, and we have legal counsel from the county, and they can come in and they can talk to us based upon their assessment of this stack right here of source documents and what their assessment is. That could start off the discussion, and then we can go into some of these other things we're talking about now. A special session, this body, one topic only, and leave enough time for us to have a well thought out, collegial give and take on what might be the best approach as we move forward. To me, that seems rational. If people are agreeable with that, and it's possible we can actually call a special session, then I would change my motion, and that would be the motion.
Something? can I ask something? So, just as an example, the Area Plan Commission of Tippecanoe County is an MPO. They are an independent entity. I don't know exactly how that works legally. However, they are housed in their county, and the county pays the full 20% local share match for them. However, they serve Lafayette, Tippecanoe County, Carroll County, Delphi, Camden, and Flora. So I guess my question as staff is, what is the concern with the current way that things are organized? Because there is a difference between how something is organized and how staff perform on the job. Just because staff happen to be housed within the city does not mean that those staff are biased towards the city in any manner. And so I'd like to know, I guess I'd like to know more information about why this is a topic of concern when the real concerns are kind of looking at policies and procedures with how we do things in the MPO and trying to make those as collaborative and transparent as possible. We have some processes that we want to redo, and we need to work on those before the next TIP is done. And I feel that a discussion about our current setup, which makes sense because the city of Bloomington pays that full 20% local share. And so, you know, they're providing the equipment, they're providing the HR, administrative support. So I don't know, I guess I'm curious about what the real intention is behind this and behind this request, and what purpose will it serve? What benefits will it bring about? What positive changes will occur that can't already occur in its current setup? I absolutely welcome discussion for change. I am a huge proponent of change. I go into a job and I change. I do everything I can to make things better and change them. I'm not afraid of change, but I don't see that any of the current needs will be served by redoing this organization, at least at this time. Now, if it's something you want to do this spring before the approval of the UPWP, that will delay our funding. We just won't get federal funding next year. It'll probably take months to redo this arrangement and get it approved through the state and through federal highway. So if you want to have this conversation, by all means have it, but you will probably, it's probably in everybody's best interest to agree to do it over the course of the next year and not delay the approval of the UPWP for fiscal year 27, because then we just won't get any federal funds.
Did you have a comment?
Yeah, to the staff point, I mean, every MPO is set up as with a host body, an entity that just takes care of, to her point, the staff, the HR, the benefits, the payroll. So those are all covered by the city's department. And I guess unless the county has the ability to shoulder all that financial and human capital, that seems like we're recreating a process that's already in place and working to a fine degree. So yeah, the question would be is like, what is the necessity to move all of the people and resources and funding sources that just simply takes care of presenting these meetings and organizing the meetings, because everything else is then delegated down to the interlocal agreements between all the different bodies of people sitting up here. And then they're really just running all of this and providing us with all the materials and space and everything else.
And I'm not asking for an answer at this point. That's just something that to consider in the future, and also to try and move us forward into the voting of the UPWP for fiscal year 27. Thank you.
Julie?
As I noted, there's a lack of transparency around supervision, funding, budgets, decision-making, how decisions are made. And it's included in the work plan as just sort of this throwaway sentence, and I think the public deserves to know.
Could you clarify?
I'm not asking staff to respond to me. Please don't. In fact, I will say please don't. I'm just offering my commentary for this board. I don't want to have the debate right now, but I think we need to have that discussion. And one of my questions for the next item is when we have to have that work plan approved. That's a question. This is not about just shifting it to the county. There are entities where it is an independent office. The city and the county and the other entities all chip in and pay for it and cover the staff costs that are not covered through MPO funding. There are other ways to do it. I'm not trying to shift this to the county, but certainly what I think we do want to do is answer those questions that have been posed by staff, but answer the questions that have been posed here and just get more information. And we don't have that information. And I don't want to sit up here and guess at that information. I don't want to ask staff for that information. I want to ask attorneys for that information. I want to ask a city attorney and a county attorney, what is this? And so I appreciate Mr. Ferris's amendment, and if it hasn't been seconded, I will second it, but I don't know. Anyway.
So do I need to change my amendment to have a special session with attorneys or counsel present providing their assessments so we as a body for one agenda item can talk about this in detail? And all these things we're talking about here can be discussed, and hopefully out of that discussion, we can have a way ahead, and we can do this in a timely manner. I appreciate what Katie is saying about funding and the timeline. You've got a hard date, but this needs to take place. So I would argue within the next couple of weeks, if you can facilitate a special meeting, and the city can take and put the city attorney and the county can take and put the county attorney on notice that they need to take and do this analysis and report back to us, and we'll use that as the beginning topic on the discussion. Real or perceived, there is an element of miscommunication here. I've seen it. I've been participating either as a citizen or other with respect to this body since 2018. There's a transparency issue right now. So I will change my motion if the person who did the second would also allow me to change that motion. Okay, and this motion would be exactly what I just said, that we convene a special session of the MPOPC, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, to address whether or not we need to move forward with a new agreement, however we want to call it, that would lay out the roles and responsibilities of this body, the MPO staff, how we all work together, how we take and communicate with one another, and how we have more transparency on the products that are presented to us, and have an ability to take and review them in a manner in which we can ask questions. Some of the stuff we see for the first time, you didn't have a chance to absorb what in fact it means without digging into 2 or 3 layers. I personally have time to do that because I'm retired. I can't imagine some of the folks here who have other jobs having the time to do that. So that would be my motion, absent the last part, which was more of a comment.
Yeah, and I will second that, and I will add the qualifier that maybe we also want to move the next item to that meeting as well. But I leave that for the board to decide later. Planting that seed.
First of all, I want to say there's 13 minutes left in this meeting, and I have a noon. So I would like to get along with the work program meeting. I'm not opposed to a special session. I don't know if we need to have a vote for it. But when I asked last month when this plan needed to be approved, the answer was at this meeting today. So we need to get this moving today. so that we can be assured that it gets through all of the state processes that it has to get through before it gets to the federal processes that it has to go through, so that we actually get the money. And if we don't do that today, then we won't get the money. So Mr. Ferris made a motion, Commissioner Thomas seconded it, but then added an addendum onto it saying pushing this next thing off to that. And I want to make sure that that's not part of the motion.
Nope, I just made my
Okay.
comment that that's something we might want to consider.
And then secondly, do we even have to have a motion to have a special session? How do meetings of the MPO get scheduled? Are there ever like other meetings of the MPO? Because I mean, if this was council right now, it would just be like, we're having another meeting and we'll figure it out. And we all as a body know what we want to talk about in that meeting.
I think it's important to be.
I would like to hear that from staff in terms of procedural.
That's 9.5 years I've ever called a special session, period.
So, but we like approved the meetings at the
we-
beginning, so,
I mean, you can make a motion to,
okay,
yeah,
okay.
but you'll have to tell us what the agenda is.
Right, and the date, who is responsible for figuring out what date that special session needs to go on?
Well, we'll have to poll everybody because
Okay.
everybody else has other responsibilities.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, is it appropriate to ask legal staff to elevate this on their priority list?
I don't know who wants to answer that. I mean, I having worked with the city legal staff, they do not, they deal with many things that are all important. And so asking them to elevate something is, I mean, maybe they can get it done and maybe they can't. I mean, I understand Mr. Ferris wants to do this rather quickly, but I don't think that we can do this rather quickly. We're a whole body. There's a ton of us up here and there are people missing that have to somehow schedule something extra in the next couple of weeks with legal staff from at least two different entities. Like, we cannot do that in the next couple of weeks. So I guess I would argue to not have a special session at all and to put this to another regular session to continue the meeting and ask city legal, county legal, et cetera, to come to that meeting if it's possible for them, and consult with them about which meeting that they can come to. Because we can't make decisions up here for that. Mr. Seaboard can't make decisions about city legal. Even if Mayor Thompson was sitting in that seat, she wouldn't be able to either in terms of those priority lists. So
I'd also like to point out that there's a difference between a discussion on the legal establishment of the MPO versus the transparency of information and processes, which MPO staff continue to try and improve as we go. But the reorganization of the MPO designation is not going to magically change transparency issues that you may be referencing.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so given we only have about 8 minutes left, I think this is a strong topic for everybody. I think that's obvious. I think there are people that are not here that deserve to be, have a view in this and a decision in this. I do think it's a topic that should not be tabled indefinite. I think that a special session would be very hard. Everybody's schedules, you have spring break coming up. Legal departments are very busy. I would urge that this is a remaining topic on this agenda for this board to discuss. There's different areas that I think there could be improvement on this, and I can't speak for the county. I'm not the fiscal body or anything, but you know, granted, I know it's housed at the city of Bloomington. I know it's paid for by the city of Bloomington. That was established 40 years ago. Doesn't mean that the county can't stand up and contribute to those costs to make it a more unified group. I do know when, you know, this did come about when they did the trade last year, and there was a lot of different views, different opinions about the process. When I was called in to discuss the process, it was me as county with 4 or 5 city. And MPO staff. Did I feel like it was a little one-sided? Absolutely. I had no other representation there. I just, you know, I want it to be a unified group. Did I feel like it was unified in that meeting and with David Hiddle? I didn't, because, you know, how was he involved? Where was my outside county representation? Because none of this board was involved. except for myself. Andrew was there, MPO staff and planning department. So that's the kind of stuff that would be great to iron out of what the process is and who's involved and who makes these decisions, and transparency. So moving on, we have a motion on the table. I believe it's for a special session, but I think that's going to be impossible in the next few weeks. So if the motion, if I can amend the motion to state that this would be a discussion at the next regular meeting in March, and we all can do our research, get with our legal teams, give Ellettsville, IU, Transit opportunity also. That would be my motion, that this would be a continued item on the next, on the next meeting.
So that sounds like a competing motion with what's on the table. So I would request that we just vote on the motion on the table for whether to have a special session.
Okay.
And I mean, there's often, I mean, we have a new business and an old business section here.
Okay.
And I would say that this automatically would end up going to old business if we don't settle it.
That's
So
fine.
in my opinion, and if staff agrees with continuing it on the agenda, I think we can just vote on the special session. And if the no wins, then it just remains on the agenda for next month.
Okay.
Is that accurate to staff?
I was also going to say a working group is another tool
Okay.
that could be used for something outside.
Do you want a roll call vote? This is to have a
Do we have
special-
a second? Who was this
I
second?
think Julie was the second. Sorry, Commissioner Thomas.
Just for the good. This is a roll call vote on the motion for a special session.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Can I have a question to the town clerk? It's not for a
Special session. I thought Lisa's amendment said.
They withdrew that kind
No,
of.
that's,
So what are we voting on?
to have a special session meeting on this topic.
Okay,
Of
that
the
is not,
MPO
that is,
Policy Committee.
that is not part of the regular monthly.
Right.
Thank you.
Stossberg? Bishop?
No.
Ridge?
No.
Seaboard?
No.
Horn?
No.
Ferris?
Yes.
Packer?
No.
Nickel?
No.
Bannock?
No.
Thomas?
Yes.
Tobin?
No.
Motion does not pass.
So it becomes old business on the next agenda, correct? I just want to make sure we all understand that. So there's no question next month. Thank you. Thank you.
Moving on to item B, Unified Planning Work Program.
Lisa,
For twen-
forgive me, I don't know the rule of order on this, but if this is going to be on old business next time, is it possible that some type of summary of this interaction today could be brought forward rather quickly so that the various entities and representatives here can take them to their bodies and get direction and have discussion so that next month's meeting has some substance to it?
Staff would have to go through an hour and a half of discussion to try and summarize the points. And then I'm not sure if what we summarize would be agreed to. So we'll make our best effort to do that, yes.
I will say that Mr. Ferris has compiled a series of questions that connect back to these founding documents, and it includes the founding documents, and I'm sure that if you would like him to, he will send that to you. He's already sent it to staff, but I'm sure he could send that to you, Mr. Horn.
Okay.
Well, I hope it would be helpful to people just beyond me
Oh,
or
yeah.
public transit to have that.
So those comments you're referring to are actually attached to this package. So
I would really like to move on to the work program right now because I literally have another meeting upstairs in 2 minutes.
Item B.
So the answer to my question is,
We'll work on a summary.
thank you.
Page, I'm sorry. Yeah, I will. Page 21 of your packet, page 21, 22, 23, 24, identify the review comments by our funding agencies, Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration, Indiana Department of Transportation. Those comments were minor in that they want us to clarify, well, they want us to erase the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, repealed executive orders, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The work program itself is a balanced document. $396,000 is what it comes to with the federal and the local match. Federal funds are approximately $298,000. The tasks were reordered based on where we spend our time, and where we've spent our time in the last 2 years is answering questions, answering emails, holding meetings. The document fulfills, the Indiana Department of Transportation told us the document fulfills all the requirements, all the federal aid requirements under 23 CFR Part 450, which governs the operation of the MPO. So if there's any question about are we legitimate, the answer is yes. And we have been for something like 40 some odd years. There's a lot of nuance in here. The individual tasks are identified. We have 11 funding tables in here, which identify where the level of order is going to be in terms of our emphasis. The individual responsible agency and end products are all identified thoroughly in every one of the elements. We also identify whether this is an ongoing or whether it's a special item of some type or another. We've reduced the budget in the long range area of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan because that was approved in January of last year. Therefore, we won't have to approve a new one for another 4 years. We've beefed up. The emphasis is on, like I said, administration, public involvement. The second emphasis is on the Transportation Improvement Work Program because those are the capital projects we deliver for you. And the third emphasis is on active transportation, safe streets for all, the SS4A element, and then we go down from there. I'll be happy to answer any questions you've got in that. All of the tables are all there. The tables were all modified from the draft to show a carryover column. This was requested by the Department of Transportation. All of the tables are exactly what the Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit, NDOT has requested, and they fulfill 23 CFR Part 450. Carryover columns all say 0, but we were told to add them anyway. Any questions anybody have? Yes.
And what is the hard date deadline for this plan?
Today.
What is NDOT or Federal Highway date deadline?
Normally we would adopt this in April, but the problem is it's been accelerated because of threats to funding. The threats to funding are on the national level in that programs have not been funded. Managed programs are they're understaffed. Federal Highway Administration now, where they had 6 planners, they now have 1. Federal Transit Administration, where they had multiple planners for each individual state, they now have 1. The process, they've asked us, they call it a threat, is what the Department of Transportation called it. So they've asked every MPO to vastly accelerate the review and adoption by the policy committee. They've asked us to do all of that. We've met that requirement. anything postponed beyond this point puts your transportation improvement programs possibly under threat, in that we would not receive a notice to proceed by July 1st. If we don't receive a notice to proceed for planning, which is a federal requirement, if we don't receive it by January 1st, then all transportation improvement projects with federal aid would stop, period. That's the succinct part right there.
Great. That's the timeline I was wanting to hear. And I do know that the month of May is very hard for federal aid projects. The closer you get to May 1st, because they don't do a lot, they don't approve a lot, they don't move money around.
May 1st is the lockdown.
Yeah,
Yes.
so, yeah, I understand the urgency of the timing to save the projects in the tip. Thank you.
And I can't emphasize enough, it meets the requirements of 23 CFR Part 450. I mean, it meets all the federal requirements, and they're very happy with us because we're number one so far.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions on the plan? Scott?
I apologize for my next comments before I make them because I understand the time. I asked serious questions of the MPO staff following the last meeting. It was the week after the last meeting. I did not receive a response from those questions till after close of business last Friday. Saturday was the cutoff date for comments. I was not allowed to talk to my colleagues with respect to the feedback that I received by MPO staff. I did make an inquiry on the beginning of this week, wanting to know if my comments would be included. I was told they would not be. This list that I see in front of us, to which we're talking about, is great. It talks about the feds, it talks about the state, but it doesn't talk about my comments. And I am disturbed over the fact that the MPO staff made a unilateral decision not to take and list them so we could at least have a discussion about them. What they have done is attach them to this package in the back of it as public comment, but not discussing what, in fact, I was asking questions about in some of the comments I made.
The clarification, the first email that we received, I noted that the 30-day comment period was open until February 21st. Therefore, the assumption was that you could place those initial comments in the public record for a legal notice if you so wish, if you so chose. That didn't happen. Therefore, we received your communication on January 25th. That was after the deadline. Nonetheless, we posted it in the document. It's on page 65, 63, 64, 62, 3, 4, and 5. All of those were entered in there, which sets a precedent in that we entered something in there beyond the legal period. So all of your comments that were said on that date of January 25th are all included in there. And we also provided responses to those comments that were made.
And to be repetitively redundant, my favorite phrase, none of this stuff, you provided feedback to me, closed the business last Friday, prior to this deadline for providing comments, not allowing me in the wee hours of Friday evening to actually go through your comments and respond with additional comments would be worthy of a public comment on Saturday by close of business, which is a weekend. And we're getting beyond that. We're absolutely splitting hairs. My comments are still valid. They deal with what we talked about previously with the agreement. And more importantly, the other part that I'm concerned about is a, quote, deliberate, underline, bold print, budget review process, which there is not much transparency on, which needs to be explained.
Would you like us to add everything from February 23rd up until from February 3rd to February 25th? We can add that into the document. We can add in anything you wish. We wanted we wanted everybody to have the opportunity to comment within the legal comment period.
I was asking for changes inside the work plan itself, which would explain these things. I wasn't going to write that paragraph for you. I was asking the MPO staff to write that paragraph and then put it in front of us so we could nod our head. When I go to the portion of the work plan that talks about the organization and how all this fits together, it doesn't really take and explain the transparency on how this process works. What I have seen since I've observed this body, going back to 2018, is that products are presented to us and there's no discussion. And matter of fact, when you ask the question about the public comment, the response has been there is no public comment. That demonstrates to me that people really don't even understand what we're talking about. Roles and responsibilities are important, and the agreement should talk about that, and more importantly, the work plan should take and make reference to that. The org chart that you have in here is very rudimentary if you take a look at it on who reports to and how it works. It's in the bylaws or it's in the work plan itself. So I respectfully disagree with what you just said, and it's just a matter of record at this point. I am disturbed over the fact that we have a laundry list of Fed and state comments, but you don't have anything in there addressing comments that I raised. I am a member of this body. And whether or not I missed a timeline, and I just explained how that happened, the comments still should have been addressed, and where I said a change needs to be made or included in the document, that should have been on this sheet here, and we could have had a discussion about that, and not you, but this body would decide whether there's something that's relevant to be included in the plan. And I apologize for talking so long about this when people want to leave, but this is important. It's missing from the document. I will not support this document.
Could you clarify?
Let me finish.
Clarify.
Wait a second, it's my time. Regardless of the time on the clock here, or the time that we have with respect to get this in to receive funding, it's an incomplete, not properly staffed document at this point. I will vote no when it comes to a vote. I end my conversation now.
I just want to say that it is in your opinion, all of those things that you just said about this document being incomplete and not proper and not accurate. And those other comments that you put in here as suggestions, they are of your opinion. Just because you suggest something that's your opinion, that does not mean MPO staff. Any one of us can suggest something. And in my mind, that does not mean that MPO staff has to do exactly what any one of us said wanted to be done. I don't disagree that, yeah, maybe we should all have talked about it, right? Maybe those things should be brought up, but I also think that it's unreasonably timed to ask them to do that, even in preparation for this meeting. Like, and similarly, there's been another extended topic of conversation that we also had to discuss that was brought up by you tonight. And yes, and I know that, like, I need to leave right now because there is another topic of conversation happening that I also needed to have input on right now. So yeah, I'm getting a little bit heated about that because there are pieces of this that our staff have been working on for an extended period of time. And what I have seen so far today is a good deal of disrespect for our MPO staff. And that has gotten me a little bit steamed this week because I am a little bit tired of seeing people sitting up here in these positions disrespecting staff. So I would like to approve this, move this on. I'm honestly, I don't like that there's this appendix in here from you because this is a stack full of opinions that may or may not have any actual validity to the legal elements of the document that they are required to meet per INDOT. And those requirements per INDOT are ridiculously complex. And there are I don't know those requirements per INDOT in detail from MPO. I have talked much more extensively with the city controller about the requirements per INDOT related to budget stuff, or not INDOT, but the state of Indiana related to budget stuff, because the state of Indiana has ridiculously complex requirements for how those things are presented too. Some of this is not necessarily applicable because as a body, the MPO, so that we can get this money, we have to jump through these pre-designed hoops. Yeah, we're jumping through them and they're producing things that are not very readable to the public, that are not particularly transparent. Should we do better with that in terms of explaining things to the public and understanding? Yes, but that can't be done within this document. Within many documents, that can't be done. That is an additional task that then we're saying, oh, okay, in addition to preparing this really complex thing for the state of Indiana, I also want you to prepare a thing for dummies, even though there is nobody from the public at this meeting, whoever comes. Now, I have said to them, maybe if we did do that, then maybe more people would come. I think that it would be great to have more people engaged in MPO work because it's a whole lot of money and a whole lot of projects for this community. And I think it's really, really important. But at this point, we're well past our closing meeting time. I would like to, I guess, I need to find the place in the thing to move to approve the work document as presented. Is that the right motion? Or is it a resolution? Let me find the thing.
It's a motion. It's a motion for the plan.
Is it appendix? Oh, there it is. Approve. I would like to move to approve adoption resolution FY 2026-06.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any more discussion?
I'm going to be very quick. We spent a lot of time here talking, and you've had plenty of time on the floor, and I understand we are all pressed for time. I'm pressed for time right now. I would hope that the bulk of this work plan is focused on getting our funding, and I don't have any issue with that. I believe that this is a document we could amend because we could amend the process part of it without impacting any part of our funding in the future. So I will vote yes for that reason, that I plan to work through amendments on the processes. Thank you.
Any public comment? Would you like to do a roll call vote or?
Horn,
Yes.
Seaborn,
Yes.
Fairs,
Is that me, Bears?
Ferris,
So my comment, I want to make a quick comment. I accept what Commissioner Thomas said. I don't really take issue with the funding elements as they were described. I take issue with the process and the organization, which I've stated. Those things need to be addressed, and they need to be, if they're going to be included in this document, if you've got a section on organization, et cetera, it all needs to be explained. If you've got an org chart in there, it needs to be explained. So I will change my position in order just to take and move the funding request along to yes.
Packer,
Yes.
Nickel,
Yes.
Strasburg,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Bannock,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Ridge.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Moving on to new business, the fiscal year 2026-2030 TIP amendments. Basically, it is Bloomington Transit purchase of new buses.
Thank you, Lisa. So as you know, the MPO doesn't have any authority over where the funds from Federal Transit Administration, how those are given out to our local transit agencies. However, sometimes, projects for the transit agencies do have to be in our local TIP document. And so you do have purview over that. And so what you see is a request to add a new project to the TIP. In the TIP, currently, there is a project for the purchase of electric buses. However, this is just a general purchase of buses. They will be diesel, and they will be articulated buses to use for the university. I believe they'll be getting 3 of them. And the funding that you see is funds, MPO federal funds that were flexed to transit. at the end of fiscal year 22, 23, and 24. And so these funds that we flexed over to transit, they are able to hold on to them for a few years, unlike us. And it sounds like Federal Transit would like everybody to use the funds that they have prior to the expiration of the transportation bill in September. And so they are trying to get their pots used of funding. Does anybody have any questions?
Do we have a motion?
I move approval of the TIP amendments, Resolution 2026-05.
We have a motion and a second. Any board discussion? Any public comment? Seeing none. All those in favor for adoption of a resolution fiscal year 2026-05, do so by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on, public comment on matters not included on the agenda. Seeing none. Communications from committee members on matters not on the included in the agenda. Seeing none. Upcoming meetings, the Technical Advisory Committee will meet on Wednesday, March 25th at 10 a.m. Citizens Advisory Committee will meet Wednesday, March 25th at 5:30, and the next Policy Committee meeting will be March 27th at 10:30 a.m. This meeting's adjourned.